I was injured in a hunting accident when I was 14 years old. I was coming down a mountain trail north of my hometown of Millinocket, Maine, and I fell carrying a gun, and the gun hit a rock, went off, and hit me in the back. One of the unique things about it all was that my father at that time was in a wheelchair from an automobile accident. He was a spinal cord injury, and he was injured when I was 6. So I knew what a paraplegic was, a spinal cord injury. I could drive a car with hand controls and pop a wheelie before I was injured. So it's almost like I did an apprenticeship beforehand. So I was ready in one aspect. Another aspect, I had to go through the same difficulties of adjusting. After my injury, I really felt that I would not be able to do those things, that it was just an illusion, that you can do what you want to do. You know, here it is some 20 years later, and I'm a national or world-class athlete, running races, winning some, losing some, but being able to express myself at as high a level as I am able to as an athlete, the way I wanted to when I was a teenager, but couldn't. A little bit of patience, and things have a way of coming around.
Is this a boy and his dog?
Yeah. I asked Jeanette to get married last year when we were in Hawaii, and I said, sweetheart, why don't we get married, settle down, and have dogs? And she immediately accepted. I told my mother about that a little later, and she thought about it for a few minutes, and her response was, she said, you know, George, if I had it to do over again, I think I'd have dogs, too. And in that regard, we got started, because we have one little dog already, and we're talking about having
number 2.
The inclusion of disabled people into all areas of our society has been very dramatic over the past couple of decades. And one of the almost last frontiers is in the area of social and athletic involvement. Racing, I just kind of fell into. That was back in the late 70s, 76 and 77, about the time that the racing chair was beginning to evolve. After one of my workouts with the discus, one of my teammates, Phil Carpenter, asked me if I'd like to try his racing chair. And I had never, used the racing chair. I had pushed in my chair, and I had suffered every slow joke, that had ever been thought up. When I got in his chair, it was different. He's quite a bit shorter than I am. So when I sat in the chair, everybody thought I didn't fit. But what happened was my knees were up very high, and I could reach the bottom of his push rims, and I had never sat in a chair like that. So I thought I'd try to do a lap, and within the first half lap, I was hooked. I'd never gone that fast before in a chair. And I did one lap, and it was fast, it was exciting, and it was fun. And I did another one right after that, and I used a stopwatch, and I came around in 1 minute and 36 seconds. Before that, the best I had ever done was 2 minutes and 13 seconds. The world record was 1 minute and 30. 6 seconds off the world record. I didn't quite know how to handle it, but it was fun. And within a week, I was building my own chair, and I was hooked on not the competitive racing, but I was hooked on having that mobility. Most of my life, my wheelchair was a form of restriction or confinement. And I got into a racing chair. It became a means of expression, and it allowed me to have mobility, the thing that I supposedly was not supposed to have. And I like that. For a lot of people, I think this would work as it's set up. There'd be enough clearance if we move this out a little. But for some people, like me, for instance, with my size 12 shoes, I need the space in here for my feet because they don't go back that far. So we all have a natural tendency to achieve somewhere along our own expectations. And if they're low, you're going to achieve low. If they're high, even if you may not fully achieve what your expectations are, but striving to, you're going to achieve much higher. By and large, the expectations that society has of disabled people are too low. Too willing to help, too willing to forgive, too willing to make excuses. Disabled people are no different.
There would be nothing in here then.
It's going to work the same way?
He's the boss, he says so.
The pivot point for the steering linkage is below this point. It would have to be reversed above it.
Oh.
It would work backwards if it was like that.
To go right, you turn left. That would be hard. We'd need to put directions around my chair.
Do that for your competitors.
Yeah, that's an idea. Could put that on a few fellas' chairs, I know. Well, that looks good. Is it going to work?
We've done our part. You'll have to go out and put it on the roads and tell us what's good and what's bad.
Well, of course, the bottom line is if it's going to go faster. That's what we're after.
Well, I think another bottom line, too, is safety. You remember the potholes and railroad tracks in Boston in 1980?
Mile 23. I had a lead by 1 mile over second place. And going through Cleveland Circle, they have the trolley car tracks there. And they're up fairly high. I got over 3 of them, but the 4th one, the left front wheel, I didn't get it over, and I just hit it. And it sheared it right off at the fork. So as I'm going over the wheel, I look behind me, holding in my hand is my, as I'm going over the track, is my front wheel. And I finished the race on 3 wheels, but of course, instead of winning, I came in 8th place. But this one would have rolled over it.
This should be a faster chair, but I think basically it's going to be a safer chair.
That counts for some, but you know, you want to be safe, but it's a race, it's a sport of racing.
Speed is important, but you have to finish to win.
You really can't sacrifice speed because there are 10 guys in the race, and even though you may get into difficulty here and there, if you sacrifice speed on every single race, there will be other guys that aren't sacrificing speed, and some of those are gonna, you know, they're gonna finish, they're gonna win.
In 1975, I was living in South Lake Tahoe, and I was working in the clubs as a blackjack dealer. And I was coming home from work one night and with my boyfriend in a Jeep, and the Jeep went a little bit too wide around a turn, and it flipped, and I fell out of it, and I broke my back. When I broke my back, it damaged my spinal cord, and that in turn paralyzed my legs.
When I first heard about Candy being in an accident, I had just gotten out of bed and answered the phone. And I had received a telephone call from Barton Memorial in Tahoe. And the doctor simply said, your daughter's been in an accident, and she's severed her spinal cord, and we don't expect her to live.
They tell you, you've broken your back, you're never going to walk again. And myself, I had no idea of what that meant. I just thought that it was just a joke that someone had made up. And like I got sick or I broke my arm, it's just going to get better in a couple weeks, and I was going to go back to work.
I think she dealt with her disability pretty much as anybody would who has such a trauma, in that they're stopped dead cold in the world, and they don't, their image of themselves, their picture of themselves is totally wiped out, who they are. Even at 21, if you have already arrived at who you are in the world, which is probably not likely, it destroys whatever you've put together for yourself. And she fell apart. She came together very well after the accident, but then she fell apart afterwards and retreated from everybody and everything.
I just did a lot of drugs, and so that way I didn't have to feel anything, and I didn't have to think about anything, and just kind of let it all go by. So when I finally decided to adapt to the situation and go on with my life, that was probably after about 2 years after the accident.
The family doesn't have any difficulty accepting her. I don't think the family ever did have any in fact, it's kind of a thing you rally around, and you really, I don't know how to say it. I used to sometimes look at Candy and start to feel sad. And I realized I was just feeling really sad for me, not her. She's made a whole life for herself. A beautiful life for herself, and no, I think after the first shock of it's over, everybody's there for you.
I got into swimming and started to compete in swimming in the national games, and from then on, I met someone who was racing chairs and said, you ought to try this, and I liked it a lot, so that's how I got into the racing. I was never a very competitive person, you know, in the sports field very much. Things were mostly recreational and lots of fun. But now the competitive sports gave me the physical well-being, which is a really nice offshoot of it, but it also gave me a good emotional and a spiritual well-being too. It's let me see a lot of different sides of myself and meet a lot of other people and find out that there's a lot of different aspects to life than just what my ideas are.
You got to meet me as well.
We met at a race, the Honolulu Marathon. We raced the whole race together, and then Peter left me on the last mile to beat me.
I dragged her for 26 miles.
It's not true. We drafted back and forth. But on the last hill, he sprinted up the hill, said, "See you at the finish line."
It's a race.
I know.
I wanted her to go. Everybody wanted her to do for herself, but you don't want to push, because if you push, you think maybe you're doing the wrong thing. In fact, you think you're doing the wrong thing no matter what you do if you don't get a little help from somebody. I've always felt that a little more help for the parents psychologically and the family is just imperative, just imperative. Candace wouldn't accept help psychologically, so I went to the guy and said, "I need some help." Then he told me to stop being such a super mother and let her do for herself. Oh, you know, breathe for me. I don't mean good mother in that sense, where just do everything for you. And then you begin to resent the fact that you're in this position doing everything for this person, and even though you love them. And she needed to do for herself. It was like picking up her clothes. We used to get in a fight when she first got out of the hospital about, pick up your clothes. I don't know, but she didn't, I guess, you know, her clothes couldn't have meant less to her at that point in time. But there had to be something that's like the normal routine of living. You have to go back to it some way or another.
Psychologically, when you have an injury like this, it's almost like having a death. You are losing part of yourself. You are losing something. So you have to go through stages. You have to grieve. You have to be upset. You have to say, "Oh, sorry me." And you have to let go of it. And you have to go on.
See, this is the name of our basketball team, the Unicorns. That's a big candle. One big candle. You're a big girl. You started a fire, huh?
It's going to explode. Get better remembering it.
Pull it up.
Think positive.
Make it pull it out.
Okay.
Wow, you're a lucky girl.
Here, let's move it over and you can put them down, okay, Eric? There you go, put them down.
So Stone, he got the camera and the cake at the same time.
Yeah.
He's so old.
I think that one of the big problems that it happens in the beginning with the parents and the grandparents, maybe even the other kids in the family, is a feeling of guilt. You feel guilty because it didn't happen to you. You feel guilty. As a parent, I felt very guilty because somehow I should have been there to stop this. I should have been there to rescue her. I should have somehow been, you know, several hundred miles away doing something for her. And this is something you have to deal with no matter how unrealistic it seems to you that you feel that way. It's quite real.
I was always an athlete before I was hurt. And I think being an athlete, it comes from the heart. It's something you have to express. And, you know, some people have to express themselves musically. Some people can express themselves academically or in business. But I'm an athlete at heart. The fact that I was injured was just a curve in the path. I'll always be an athlete. And it's just, I've changed the way that I do it. Instead of running with on two legs, I pursue it in a wheelchair. The same dedication, the same pursuit of excellence is always going to be there. The time, the effort, the blood, sweat, and the tears, they'll be there. The success, the failure. That's all what athletics is about, whether you're in a wheelchair or whether you're not. I was always really super independent, and I still am. There's some things that I just had to accept that I can't do. You know, if I want to lift my TV up and move it somewhere, you know, that's a real hard challenge. I can do it, but it's a challenge. If I want to lift a table out or a couch, you know, I'll be able to do that. It's unfortunate, but that's just the way the ball bounces. So I have independence, but I have to adapt, and I have to accept some things that I just can't do, and I need help. And we're all like that. Today's society, there are always things where we just need some help. We just don't have the expertise or the capacity to do certain functions, and it's all relative. My life now socially has quite dramatically changed. In Williams Lake, I had about 5 or 6 very close friends, and things were very simple for me, Rick Hansen. I could spend time with them, and everything was quite secluded, and I didn't have to share myself in terms of time and people. Now that I've come to the big city, and I'm involved in athletics, I log over 100,000 miles a year in training for traveling time. And in training, I logged pretty close to 7,000 miles a year. And you meet so many people. So your whole world becomes expanded. You have less time for your friends.
Come on, Roscoe, sprint it home, boy.
Oh.
Bit of a headwind there, eh? Really? Right in the face all up that long straight. God. Good effort, though. One more time. Yeah. 17 down, one more to go. Go for it. Spurt to the top.
I was injured in 1973 when I was 15 years old. I was involved in an automobile accident. I'd been hitchhiking home from a fishing trip and caught a ride with the wrong guy. We were in the back of a pickup truck, a friend of mine and myself, and we were coming around a corner. The guy had been driving for a long period of time and was a bit reckless and just lost control of the vehicle and rolled it. My friend was thrown clear, and I was trapped underneath, and my back was broken and left me paralyzed. After I was hurt, my attitude was that being in a wheelchair, you were a poor cripple and you'd be put in a hospital for the rest of your life. I didn't even know that there was wheelchair sports that existed. One day, this kindly old gentleman came driving up to my school in a red convertible with the top down, and I wheeled by, and he honked his horn, and he goes, "Hey, boy, where?" And his name was Stan Strong. And that man has made a tremendous contribution to wheelchair athletics and to the disabled people in general throughout Canada and the world. He's one of the first surviving paraplegics, and he basically educated me as to what was available athletically, both in Vancouver, provincially, nationally, and internationally. And that opened a tremendous door for me because, again, I realized that I could pursue the lifestyle that I loved.
When you first meet a person, I mean, you like to find something that, you know, is common between the two of you. And, I mean, I was asked him, you know, what he did before he was hurt. He told me he went to school and said he was very interested in sports and that. And myself, I'm always looking for somebody that's sports-minded to get them developed to get into wheelchair sports. And so we discussed it, and I told him what was available if you wanted to take up sports. And he'd be able to, if he got proficient enough, he'd be able to travel around the world. And I said it would be a good thing to have, a good thing for one of your goals. Got him down to Vancouver. He decided he wanted to get to UBC and go into physical education. Well, a problem developed here because they'd never had a disabled paraplegic in there before in their course. And we had to write letters, and the athletic director, Mr. Osborne, then they asked us how we felt about it. We said, well, we felt that if anybody could, you know, make a success in physical education, despite his handicap, Rick could do it. So they gave him a chance, and he turned out to be one of their star students there, and he also became very popular on the university. You know, in fact, he really did a lot of public relation-wise for the disabled people in BC and all over the world through his activities here at UBC at school, because he didn't take any concessions. I mean, like, he had to go swimming with everybody else. He swam, and they ran, he wheeled, and he did everything they did. In fact, he was the first disabled student ever out here, or athlete, that got a big block letter, got their sweater. He got 2 or 3 of them now. They really wanted him to go on staff.
I've always had a dream, and the dream that I had was to wheel around the world in 365 wheeling days, which is the equivalent of 25,000 land miles. In 1986, Expo 86 will be held in Vancouver. It is also Vancouver's centennial birthday. So my proposal that I put to Expo and to Vancouver was to wheel around the world promoting Expo 86, and the theme is transportation, communication, and man in motion. I feel what better way of expressing that theme is through wheeling as an ambassador of Canada, British Columbia, and Vancouver in Expo 86. And it's going to be something real exciting. My plan is to wheel through approximately 40 countries, 6 continents throughout the world. I would average about 70 or 80 miles per day in wheeling, 3 3-hour wheeling sessions, which would be about a marathon per wheeling session, or 3 marathons a day. So it's an ambitious program. It's something that I wouldn't just be able to do in a cakewalk and have a good trip out of it. I'm going to, again, put 100% into it and give everything I've got.
I was sitting at a stoplight on my motorcycle, and an old guy was making a left-hand turn onto my street, and he got in an accident in front of me and confused the gas for the brake and hit me and pushed me into the car behind me. Basically, I knew something was pretty serious before I even hit the ground because, you know, things weren't working and I was laying there. At first, I kind of thought I was dead because I couldn't see anything, and I realized that my helmet was twisted sideways on my head, and I was looking in the side of my helmet, so I thought, this is what it's like to be dead. So, you know, the lady took my helmet off, and I discovered I was sitting on the pavement, and the guy had driven like 2.5 blocks down the street. He was just so incoherent, he didn't know what was going on. So finally, when everything started coming around, like, what happened? I started discussing the possibilities pretty rationally, I think, with the paramedics. So that's when they took me off to the hospital. I knew then that it looked pretty bad.
What do you know?
Not much.
What have you been up to?
Hanging.
You work out today?
This morning, yeah.
What'd you get, 10?
15. Marty Ball came up from San Diego.
Yeah?
For a little cruiser.
Mom called just a little while ago.
And said?
To tell you, yeah. She says, has Jim been over? I says, oh, I haven't seen him yet.
She knew I was coming over?
Yeah.
I lived with my brother for a while. I still had a lot to learn about myself. It took about another year before I really figured out what was going on with myself. And, you know, my body was changing so fast, and there's a lot to learn about that. It took about a year, I would say, before I really was ready to go out on my own and do things. I started working again almost immediately after getting out of the hospital, within about 3 months. So I was well on my way to becoming independent. Well, a friend gave me a job in the travel agency, on the agency, and offered me a job there, so it was good, you know, sort of helped me to grow through, you know, that learning process.
I'm a little chocolate fudge almond. I know it's not your favorite, but it's going to have to do.
This is yours.
No, it's not.
Come on. You got more than me. Let me see.
No.
You want me to bring over some of them rims and stuff tomorrow afternoon?
Yeah. The 24 inches I really want. I don't know what else you got in there, but...
When you coming over to the house?
I don't know. As soon as you get a ramp in there.
Well, let me nail you down. When you coming over to the house?
You work Sunday?
No. Where are you going later?
Tonight?
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Little red onion or something, huh?
No, I got a race.
It's not me.
I'd like to get,
Could be me, 4-bell. But why don't you plan on coming over to the house for my birthday? That's me.
At 100 Magnolia Avenue. For Station 1, Station 3, Truck 7, and...
Let me see if they want me to go.
What is it?
For a house fire at 100 Magnolia Avenue.
I can't say what I would have been or how things would have been, but it seems to me this was a reasonable path for my change and growth to go. I'm a little wiser in some areas, and in a lot of ways, my respect for life is a little different than it probably would have been. I don't take things for granted as much anymore. It has enabled me to deal with things a little better, and it's given me more patience, which is something I didn't have before. You learn patience sitting in a chair. At first I felt funny because I got tired of people watching me all the time, but then as time went on, you learn to sort of just block that out, and, you know, it doesn't bother me anymore. Now I have trouble trying to figure out exactly why people are looking at me, whether, you know, for what exact reason are they looking at me. You know? I went through the period where you tend to stare back when somebody's staring at you, you know,
a little militant, but you know, pretty soon you just learn to phase that out. I have dreams where I'm walking, but I don't dream about walking. I have more dreams about riding a bike than I do about walking. You know, I can't walk, but I can ride a bike, and I'm out there motor pacing with Robert and the rest of the guys, you know. That's kind of cool. Or riding with my friend Doug, something like that. It's my boat over there, the black one.
Is it really?
He just wanted to borrow it for the day. I don't think wheelchair athletes are any different in their dedication and sacrifice. I think, in a sense, they're different because there's a cause behind our sport. When I was a pole vaulter, there wasn't a cause behind pole vaulting, in a sense. But now we have essentially something to prove. And I think that in that respect, we're different. That the sport means more to us because we're out to help the other people in the world who use wheelchairs and prove to them that they can go get their own carton of milk or vacuum their own floor or do whatever they need to do. Go find a job and be successful. My training schedule basically consists of 2 workouts a day. I try to train for the longer distances, more than a 1,500 meter. I feel it's a better race for me, like anywhere from a 5,000 meter to a marathon. In 81 and 82, I won the Boston Marathon. I guess that's more my kind of race. But for the 1,500, I do 2 training sessions a day, one of long road work in the morning and one of interval work in the early evening on the track.
This race we have George Murray of Tampa, Florida, Jim Canal of Long Beach, Gary Kerr of Campbell, California, Ron Miner of Edmonton, Canada, Rafael Ibarra of Las Vegas, Nevada, and Bobby Hall of Boston.
Well, the mental preparation comes along with the training, I think. If you devote and sacrifice yourself to the training, you learn to automatically prepare yourself mentally. And it's becoming more and more difficult. You have to be ready, both mentally and physically. It takes a long time and a lot of experience to learn how to relax and prepare yourself for a race. Too many people get so upset before a race and it messes up their physical performance.
Jim Knob. I have a photo of Jim Knob next to my bed. I have a photo of Jim Knob on the refrigerator, and I have a photo of Jim Knob on my dash of my car because I'm still in awe of the guy. The guy's fast. That's all he does is race. He's been beating me for about 2 years now, and I'm real close to him. I've beaten him a couple of times this year, but I feel that if I look at his picture over and over and over, then it'll ease that tension there, and that I won't be so much in awe and scared of him. So I'm just trying to get a feel for him and just, not be so scared of the guy, because I'm just as fast as he is. He's got the experience on me. But I've trained real hard. I was a real competitive and active athlete before I got hurt. And surprisingly, the differences are not that big from able-bodied sports to wheelchair sports. Of course, there's mobility differences. You're using your arms for mobility. But as far as comparing wheelchair tennis to able-bodied tennis, I still want to hit forehands down the line. I still want to attack my opponent's weaknesses. Track, it's a little bit different, but the training's the same. Basketball, the same strategies. Attack their weaknesses. As far as the comparison, the sport's the same, but you just have to adapt to play the sport. Wheelchair tennis, it's really neat. I love to compete in an able-bodied event in a chair and convince someone that I am competitive, that I am an athlete, and prove to them that I can accomplish this. Wheelchair tennis is the best because it's when they first start hitting with you, and it's the first time they've ever hit with someone in a chair. They lighten up and stuff, and then you pound a couple down the line, or you ace them with a serve, and they kind of back off and they go, "Whoa!" That's an acknowledgement from them. They are acknowledging that you are good and that you're an athlete and stuff. It makes you feel good. like them all. I love tennis, love basketball, I love the team sports, and then again, I love individual sports. And I'm just glad that I can spread them out over the season, over the year, and do 3 of them. I've done track now. I've been racing since March, seriously, daily, and I'm reaching that saturation point.
Randy's a natural athlete. He just needed to be channeled a little bit. He really responds well to training. He fights the whole way. It's never easy. He spits at me sometimes. You know, he'll sort of swear at me under his breath as he passes by. But I think he knows that the hard training that we've put in, it really, really paid off for him. I think when you're in a situation where all of a sudden one day your life is completely different, you have to find a place where you fit again. And these are people these are survivors. You know, these are people who've taken a situation and said, I have 2 choices. I can accept it and rot in this bed, or I can accept it and go on and make something with my life. And when they do, and that's an attractive feature to somebody else. You know, people like to be around winners, and to me, they're winners if they've gone and they've said, hey, so I can't walk, big deal, but I can make friends, I can travel, I can fight, I can compete. I think sports is part of the motivation to get out of bed, but more than that, it's finding a group to affiliate with. It's finding people who have taken an adverse situation and made it into a positive one.
Come on, Fred, move out a little bit, move out on a turn.
Coaching is a full-time job. Unfortunately, I don't get paid to do it.
Okay, good, smooth it out. What's the matter, Greg?
On any given day, I can be mother, masseuse, therapist, psychologist, coach, cook, housemaid, and friend. That's a lot to be to one person in any given day. It's only been the last couple of years where he's come down during the spring and actually lived with me to train.
Yes, come on in.
Living with Randy goes through a lot of different phases, a lot of different emotions. He takes over the house. I mean, it's not just that he has a lot of stuff, it's just that his stuff is sort of everywhere. There's not a whole lot of order to it. And so that makes some of the not so nice things like tripping through my living room, you know, not being able to make it to the door, so bad.
The model that you want is the quickie rigid frame. Look at this right here.
I have accepted the fact that I don't have a social life, period. But it's a limited amount of time. He doesn't have one either.
Well, we can get you a good deal.
Well, we can work things out, man.
In fact, here's a hat to start it off.
Here's a hat.
You're on board. No, we'll see what we can do and get you fitted in a good chair and
What,
get
sign-
you into the basketball stuff, huh?
Sign here, huh?
Yeah, that's right. How does that feel for you right now?
I like it.
We can get done. Hi, Alexis. What are you doing, puppy? Look at these dogs. Hey, come here, Gracie. Come here, Grace. Hi, Nikki. Come here, Nikki. Come here, Nikki. They're going, what's going on? Hey, Alexis. Judy lets these dogs in every morning if I don't get up in time for working out. She just lets them in. They can jump on the bed.
Randy, I felt, in order to really be able to achieve a peak performance, would have to commit 100% of his time to doing this. And so would I, with the exception of a few hours a week that I try and go to work so that I can pay the rent and keep him on the phone. We had a $319 phone bill this month, thanks to Randy and his networking all over the country to see who's pushing what.
There you go. And the stuff, too. And just give it a shove back, and I'm going to shut this door.
Okay, my backpack's on.
Okay. Yeah. Of course, everyone who goes through a traumatic accident can break your back, lose a limb. You're going to have to go through an adjustment period. And for some people, it's going to take longer than others. For me, it took about 3 years, where I was very selfish. I thought of only of myself, how people could do things for me. When I learned that I could go out and play wheelchair basketball and make a pass, do a finger roll, ace someone, hit a serve, do a 359, 1,500 meters, I didn't care what people thought of me. I didn't care, before I got into sports, I worried about what people thought of me, my self-image. I didn't want to go to that shopping mall and have that mom tell her daughters not to stare, not to ask questions. Now I don't really care. My self-esteem is a lot higher. Wheelchair sports has made me physically stronger, which makes it easier to get around with a disability. Psychologically, it's made me a lot better person, I feel. It doesn't really matter what other people think, you know. That's the worst part about being in a wheelchair, is what other people really, how they react. From the wheelchair sports, hopefully disabled people will gain the confidence to go out there and just do their own thing and not be inhibited by a stubborn, able-bodied majority. I'd love for the girls to come up and ask, what happened to me? What's wrong with you? What, you know, and the mom's going, oh gosh, don't come over here. The mother's the one who has the problem. The children, you know, that's fine. Just go up and ask. You know, don't be inhibited by the disability. Most of them aren't contagious. You're not going to wake up in the morning and your legs are going to be falling off or something.
In spinal cord injury, the spinal cord is either bruised or broken from impact or other types of traumatic injuries. The main goal of the lab at Irvine is to find ways to promote the recovery of function after spinal cord and brain injury. The spinal cord is a small column of nerve cells and nerve fibers that are about the diameter of your little finger. And so it's a very frail thing encased in bone. And when it's compressed or otherwise injured, the impulses trying to flow down this are disrupted, and therefore you lose function of the things below the injury. The main thrust of our recent work has been to study nerve cell transplants and to work on growth factors that help the repair of injured neural circuits. In transplants, it's now possible to replace lost nerve cells and get the transplants to integrate into the animals so that the circuits are restored. In the course of that work, we discovered that the injured nervous system was producing its own growth factors which help in the healing process. And we're working on those to try and use them as ways to promote regeneration and to help nerve cell survival. It still startles me that many people that are both paraplegic and the general public are not even aware of the research going on to treat spinal cord injury and how many important developments there are at the basic science level for finding cures. And I don't know why that is. I think too many neurologists and neurosurgeons are still telling people that there's no hope. And that is simply not true. While we can't make everybody come up and walk right now, there are a lot of developments that are coming through that are showing that there's more and more promise every year for really curing and promoting recovery.
The people who are involved right now in spinal cord regeneration research and trying to make people walk again, I think they're hoping really hard that their programs are going to be successful. You know, I wish them luck. For me, it's kind of difficult to believe, but then again, you know, people thought the world was flat, and, you know, I don't see it happening in my lifetime.
When your kid gets into the hospital, knock on every door. There's lots of people that you don't know are there, and they don't come out and say, hey, this is available, that's available, you can do this, you can do that. So you find out by accident. You don't know where to look. In fact, I guess you don't even know to look. You're just sort of standing around thinking, what shall I do with myself?
I don't think I'll ever really adjust. I'll just adapt, kind of, you know? The world, it's definitely a biased world. This is designed for able-bodied people. Life's too short. I can't sit around and worry about walking. You know, I've got to get out and live it and go for it. You know, I know they're doing things all the time, but, you know, I'm doing things all the time, too. You know, there are more important things than walking.
Okay.
I learned through experience, and there's a procedure when you're disabled in a wheelchair and trying to kayak. Usually the procedure is to take your car, or your kayak off the car, drive the car up, and load yourself in the kayak, but the chair has to be parked in a specific spot. When I first came down here, I came down to the water line, just jumped into the kayak, left my chair there, and went kayaking for 3 hours. It was low tide. I came back and the tide was in, and my chair was basically scuttled. Someone rescued my chair, but the waves just swept my keys away, and it was a bit of an interesting experience. But you learn through experience. When I paddle, I usually just jump into the kayak and I'll paddle along Kitsilano Beach. And it's nice to get out because it's a nice change psychologically. It gives me a break. And as you can see here, it's a paradise. Lifestyle, a desire that they usually have in them, and there's no reason that you can't pursue something similar to that, only you might have to adapt. The biggest thing is to just go for it. I mean, there's no reason why, it's because you're disabled, that you have to sit back and accept a stereotypic attitude. Look at all the positive things that are still there and that you can still do, instead of looking back at all the things that you can't do.
I was injured. A round bale of hay fell off of a tractor. Down here in Texas, we have 1,000-pound bales of hay, and they're rolled up in big round bales. And we go out and with tractors and pick them up in the field and bring them back into corrals and stuff. They're more convenient when you feed your cattle. You can do it once every 3 days instead of once every day. One of those fell off of the tractor, though, broke my back, and punctured lung and a broken arm and stuff. And that was 1975. I was 15 years old. You know, I used to cry, I used to hit my legs, the whole roll, you know, the whole thing that you see on TV or whatever about being disabled. It was real hard, especially because I was young. At the age of 15, you're maturing, you're becoming a man, you have a lot of other things on your mind. I had to drop all that. I had to learn about bowel and bladder control. I had to learn about transfers and skin sores and dealing with dates, relationships and stuff. And then I had to pick that up about growing up later on, so it's real difficult.
When I was first injured, I used to think about walking and the things that I would do if I could. Now I really don't. I think there was a change when I started running and my chair became a form of expression, a means for me to reach out and strive to reach a potential that I have within myself. I started feeling differently about it. I view myself being in a chair as rather neutral. It's just a physical characteristic where some people are fat, some are skinny, some have red hair, some are tall or short. I use a wheelchair to move around. I don't see it as being negative, and I don't see it as being positive. The fact that I use a chair is just a physical characteristic of me, and I don't struggle with it anymore. In 1981, Phil Carpenter and myself pushed across the United States. We started at the Santa Monica Pier in Los Angeles and pushed to the United Nations building in New York. It was 3,400 miles. It took us from April 10 to August 26. We pushed through the Mojave Desert and up over the Rocky Mountains. We paddled a canoe across the Mississippi River and pushed through Appalachia and up through New Jersey and through Manhattan and finished the trip. Our motivation for doing it was the challenge of it. It had never been done before. When we told people that we wanted to do this, they usually responded with two similar responses. First, they told us that we were crazy. We didn't debate that with them, and I still don't. But the second response was that they seriously questioned whether it could be done. A lot of people thought that you couldn't do those things in a wheelchair, that Phil and I, both being spinal cord injuries, would find that the task would be too difficult. The day in, the day out grind of doing 40, 50 miles a day. But it was just the kind of challenge that appealed to us. In a lot of ways, it was our Mount Everest. It was my way of hiking the Appalachian Trail that I couldn't do when I was first injured. And we did it for that reason, for the challenge. We also feel very strongly that it was a way of saying to people that even though you may have a physical impairment or disability, you can still accept very physically challenging things to do.
Every day you have to take it to the limit of the pain situation, where it's not a pain that you're injuring yourself, but it's a kind of it's like a warm, burning kind of sensation that you're actually
stretching your limits.
Yeah, you're stretching your limits. You're tearing down the muscle and you're building it back up. It's every day you have to take it to that. You have to take it to the point where you feel like you're really tired, but you have to take it past that.
How was it?
Fun.
Yeah?
Kind of warm.
Yeah? Anyway, you doing some more laps now or no?
Yeah, a little bit. Are you going to come in the pool?
I think so, if it's not too cold.
I found it.
Okay, well, maybe I will. Are you doing chin-ups?
Yeah, I'm doing chin-ups for you, Peter.
Go away.
1.
Stop it.
2.
Okay, you watch out, we're getting the pool now.
Okay, you gonna dive in?
Uh-huh. When any individual is approaching competition like the Olympics or World Championships, when they compete at our level, they're running their body to such a condition fit circumstance that they're near breakdown. You're running a very fine line that overtraining is very easy, and you have to be very careful, so you have to monitor your heart rate and the workouts that you do, and you have to know all the time. You have to take naps. You have to be very conscious of how your health is going, because it can fall apart very easily on you.
Let's see, let's get out.
For all practical purposes, I think we should sort of employ the rules of rollerball. I think would be great, you know. I think wheelchair racing should be set in a darkened arena, and all the people should be hit with spotlights immediately and have all kinds of weapons attached to the chair. It should be run on a circular bank track and become a sport all unto its own, where you can hook and force people off the track and, you know, all kind of good stuff. It'd be much more dramatic and much more exciting for spectators. And once you've been run over by a car, you know what's being hit with a battle axe or, you know, whatever. That's nothing. Acting and sports are not really far apart, in a sense that the commitment, the devotion, and the drive that it takes to do both are the same.
I know you've lived through a great deal. As I said before, as far as Elaine goes, I've always wanted the best. Arthur, you're handicapped.
No, you're handicapped by the way you think.
I'm just trying to do what's best for Elaine.
Well, so am I.
No, don't think of now. Don't think of the present. Think of 10 years from now, 20 years from now. Do you really think it's fair of you to expect Elaine to play nursemaid for the rest of her life?
In a lot of ways, they're apart artistically, and in a way, they're a release for each other. That's what's nice about my life now, is that acting is a release from racing, and it's vice versa. It's the same way.
Oh, no. Yes,
I shouldn't be interrupting you, huh?
You should come here and give me a hug. A big wet hug is what you should do.
How are you?
What are you doing? What are you doing swimming out here, huh?
Oh, God, I'm going to get you wet. How you doing?
Good. How are you?
Good. God, I've been looking for you ever since I saw you before the marathon, but you didn't do it, huh?
No. What have you been doing? I saw an article.
I'm on Dallas.
That's great.
Yeah, so I got a 4-year contract.
Jeez.
Yeah. It's on JR's.
Me too, me too. Can I be your brother or something, I think?
Oh, yeah.
Good dough.
I'm all jazzed.
I'll try to continue doing both. I think right now racing is more important to me because 10 years from now I won't be able to race, where 10 years from now I'll, maybe be doing something completely different. That's why I enjoy racing and athletics, because it's all in your hands. You're the one out there racing. You're on the course. You cross the finish line. In acting, it's more difficult because, like right now, I'm sitting by the phone waiting for someone else to call me to say, okay, you can perform. Okay, we'll put you on the course and you can go race. In a sense, is what they're saying, where it doesn't matter. I can go race anywhere in my chair, and it's me.
I think I'm having the same experience that I would have had anyway. Emotionally accepting challenges, succeeding and failing, experiencing life. I don't feel where the quality of my life has been affected at all. Just perhaps two roads diverged in a yellow wood, and be one travel along I stood, and I went down the other path. So I did get down a different path, but it's basically the same experience.
It feels so good when you stop. A lot of people think that it's masochistic to lift weights, but I don't think it's because we like the pain. I think it's just because it feels so good.
What's that? I got this cool tire I want to show you.
Wheelchairs nowadays are so varied, they're becoming like shoes. They're starting to realize now that it's a tool for us, which is great. A racing chair differs from an everyday chair in that it's designed specifically for racing. You sit in a different position for racing than you do in a conventional chair. And basically, it's extremely lightweight. You sit much lower, so the chair is much narrower, a little bit longer, usually has a longer wheelbase. And of course, we incorporate the 12-inch front wheel onto the front. An everyday chair either has a 5-inch or an 8-inch wheel on it. It has a seat cage, it's like any other racing vehicle. You want to become part of the vehicle. So a seat cage locks you into the chair, makes you part of the chair, which is a great safety feature, but it also gives you complete control over the chair.
It all started when I transferred this morning, yesterday morning, and I don't know how I did it. I don't know, I transferred sideways, and...
Transfer right hand down, left hand up?
Left hand up, right hand down, and it popped, and it's just been a tendon right through here. Okay. And it's killing me.
All right.
And, I'm just worried about the trials and stuff coming about us.
Okay. First of all, Randy, you're under a lot of stress. When you've got stress, you set yourselves up for all kinds of problems. So if you try to relax, I know it's easy for me to say, and I know this Olympic thing is a big deal, but stress will cause other kinds of problems to happen. Any kind of stress.
The strategy that I'm going to use for the New York trials is I feel faster than most of anybody in the world. I'm a sprinter, hold the world record in the 400 meters. So if I can just stay with the pack and end up in 5th place or better coming out of the last turn, then I feel I can out-sprint the rest of the field. I don't feel like I can go out and try to leave the pack and stuff. I think I'm going to go ahead and hang in and use the draft and work that way.
You're sure?
Okay.
You just lift up, I'll get it.
All right, go ahead. First and last place, there's not much time in between. I just don't want to be left. I don't think they can leave me, though. I've been training real hard.
There we go. Good.
Oh, boy, that even hurts. It's going to be a big sprint there at the end. In almost all the heats. It's real scary.
Think of that finish line.
I visualize all the time. I mean, I just go nuts in bed, thinking about it. The trials are worse than the Olympics. The trials, that's where you're made or you're broken. Once I get there, hey, I don't care. I'm in. I'll run 8th and wave to everybody, I don't mind. I just want to get there. That's why it's real tough right now.
Okay, all right, good.
Now, how long am I going to miss pushing? How long am I going to...
No pushing today. I know you're getting to the line, but no pushing today, and see you...
Because we've got trials in 2 weeks.
See you tonight and see how it's going, and I think you'll be doing a whole lot better.
Okay.
Okay, Jim, go get him.
I think as a sport, and as a pure sport, as pure athletics, I think that I would want them to react to us with respect and acknowledge that we are athletes and not patients, and not helpless individuals who can't do things or do anything for ourselves. It'll be the first time they've ever had this event in the Olympics, so it's pretty important, you know. I almost made it to the Olympics before my accident, and now I'm getting another chance. So I guess coming into these games in New York, everyone's really excited and kind of nervous. This is where the top 3 American men and women who make it through all the heats in the semifinals will be the ones to go to LA and race in the Olympics.
Lane 1, Marty Ball. Lane 2, Jim Knopf. Lane 3, Tom Foran. Lane 4, Randy Snow. Lane 5, Gary Kerr. Lane 6, John Rodolph. Lane 7, Wani Cook. Lane 8, Jim Martinson. And lane 9, George Murray. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, the top 3 men from this heat will move on to the quarterfinals.
I debated within myself for the day approaching the race as to how I should run it. I saw 2 basic race plans. One was to stay back, conserve myself, kind of stay out of harm's way, kick at the end of the race, and I felt that I would not have a great deal of difficulty in being one of the top 3 to progress. The other choice that I saw was to go out a little more aggressively, get out into the lead, and break away from the pack and run the race from there and avoid the congestion going through the turns and the potential risk of getting involved in a mishap and being eliminated that way.
Martinson in the lead at the bell lap. There's a racer down. It's Jim Knopf. Would someone please help him on the track? With 50 meters to go, it's Martinson, Snow, Rodolph, and Murray.
Hit me. I had to avoid him because he was here coming in. So, If this happens in Los Angeles, it's going to set wheelchair racing back 20 years. That's right. 20 years. This is an embarrassment to wheelchair athletics right here.
Male.
Congratulations, Chef. I'm so happy. George and I were going to try to break, and it didn't work. It was my turn to pull right here when I took the lead, and they couldn't stay. So I went ahead and dropped off and went and dropped, back behind. That was our plan. I got back to 6th at one time.
I know, I saw that.
But as long as they're not far,
Yeah, it's not that far into the draft.
They're 6th, and then they're 6th.
I didn't know what was going on behind me. All I could see was right off my first. Yeah, you had it. I thought for a second. Randy was right behind you.
As he ran over Canal Hospital. You were behind him.
Get away, Jim! Shoot, can you believe it? Oh, right. I had to almost completely stop.
I know.
Because he kept falling. I said, Jim, stay in your lane, man.
Stay in your lane, man. Stay in your lane. I saw your hands.
He's got to fall and slide. He's got to be able to drag it.
I saw your hands go over your head.
Oh, man, I hate protests. I hate sitting around waiting for a committee to people, I mean, just because I don't like it at all about doing it over. Just because there was contact between Jim Knopf and myself. I mean, there was contact between myself and a lot of other people, too. We can all protest everybody else. I mean, he's just making a big deal out of that.
Is it because he's ugly and he was beat when he was a baby? You think
I don't like the idea of rerunning it. I mean, there was contact with everybody.
Yeah, I heard a lot of them.
I could go. If I had the one, I'd be up there crying too, though. I could see his side.
Boy.
But man. Any other people that you need to make your decision? There's
I'm
no
going to go
problem
over
with
and take a look at that. We'll
Okay.
go over and look at it. People going to be here?
So yep, I'll wait here. You're going to...
Nobody gets hurt.
Where's the line?
If each person, their wheels, right?
Right, okay. So you can see here.
As George Miles.
Oh, I see.
Next week, I know.
Put those arms down, boy. You're not there yet.
The decision is that The protest regarding the race in question is denied. There is no evidence to indicate that any necessity to reverse the decision that was originally made in the incident under question.
Well, in today's race, I think I set a short and long-term goal for myself and got kind of taken out of the race. It was an unfortunate incident. It was a combination of negligence in the rules and people not paying attention to what was going on. And it's just unfortunate that our sport is developing so fast and the rules haven't been able to change to accommodate, you know, the safety that's needed now that we're moving at such speeds. What basically happened is I had the dominant position in lane 1, the legal position, and a guy came in, moved in on me twice, and then on the corner moved in again and forced me into the railing, and I crashed. Basically, that's what happened. The guy who loses a race can win. In a lot of ways today, I was a winner because I think that, you know, even though I crash, it's going to set a precedence and people are now going to be required to use steering handles and protective gear. If a guy gives it his best shot and doesn't win a race, and then he's a winner.
If you take a look at the times, it was very close and it was tight, and I got out-kicked at the end. And, you know, more credit to those three fellas. We all had the same task. We had to go from the start line to the finish line, and the first three there got it, and the fourth one's a rotten egg, and I just came up a little bit short. But that's racing, and that's winning and losing.
Round 1 of the men's 1,500-meter quarterfinals. From the United States, Randy Snow. From Belgium, Paul Van Winkle. From Canada, Mel Fitzgerald. From Ireland, Jerry O'Rourke. From Belgium, Luke Van Landegem. And from Sweden, Hasse Johansson.
I just need my coach in my chair.
Okay. Guys, watch yourself, Joe.
Oh, Graham.
2 minutes.
Did you hurt it?
No.
I couldn't help it. Super. What did happen to you? Put your front wheel into another back wheel or?
No, I just braked.
You okay, Randy?
I got hurt. Yeah, okay.
Sorry.
Okay, where is the next?
Ladies and gentlemen, the protest filed by the USA has been accepted, and a decision has been made to rerun this round of the quarterfinals tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. And in lane 1, from the United States, Candace Cable. This is the second heat of the women's 800-meter quarterfinals. Candace Cable of the USA leading Monica Sacker of Sweden. And the unofficial winner is Candace Cable from the USA.
My original plan for the race was to come in extremely fit, fitter than anyone there, and press right from the beginning. because I'd been looking forward to it and training for it for a great number of months. So I would have been extremely fit coming into there, but on the 12th of April, 3 days before the Boston Marathon, I crashed testing a new wheelchair and dislocated my left shoulder. So, well, originally they didn't think that I would even be able to compete until September.
Okay, we're going to do 7 laps of the hill circuit today. The thing I want you guys to concentrate on is on the downhill side, bringing your hand speed up to at least 120 strokes per second, maybe even 140 or 150. Okay, and a normal race might be 90 or 96, so we've got to re-educate our nervous system to make us think that our hands can work faster. And when you're coming up the hill, too, it's probably not a bad idea to put a little more spring into each stroke, eh? You know what I mean? Like you can make the stroke cadence slower, you know, not like, you know, slower than you do at SFU, but more snap into it, okay? Speed up the recovery, speed up the recovery. Come on, faster recovery. Wheelchair racers are able to do, you know, much higher volumes of training than runners because there isn't that jarring effect. There isn't that eccentric muscle contraction that tires the muscles out. Obviously, the wheelchair stroke is, you know, different biomechanically because it's using the arms and it's using a different angles and whatnot. That's it. Keep your head level. One more lap, okay?
This race, Rick Hansen from Vancouver, Canada, Peter Trotter from Australia, John Rodolph from the USA, Jürgen Geider from the Federal Republic of Germany, Lars Anderson from Sweden, and Mark de Vos from Belgium. Once again, this is the second round of the men's 1,500-meter quarterfinals.
Well, after Rick separated his shoulder in the middle of April, we really didn't know, you know, in the first week how bad it was separated or dislocated, actually. I suppose what we did was we sort of laid out a tentative time frame, you know, with New York in mind, you know, the end of June, saying if everything went the way it should go in terms of rehabilitation and therapy and then training again, then he's got an outside chance at the very best.
I trained real hard, and coming into New York, I knew physically that I was capable. I knew I could be there. My times were off, but they weren't off that much.
Seriously, don't think to, you know, hang back, and let these guys.
Yeah, it's not 433 anymore.
No, it isn't.
Okay.
It isn't. It's right. It's in the 420s.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. Such a little animal. He's so good.
This morning's race is the protest race from yesterday's quarterfinals, men's round 1. Number 3, you need to back up a bit. Your wheels, number 7.
Tape me up, you know, give me a little slap on the butt, and I'm ready.
Ladies and gentlemen, These are the top wheelchair racers from around the world. From this group will come the 8 men and 8 women who race in the finals at the Olympics on August 11th in Los Angeles. Kevin Lewis from the Los Angeles Olympic Organizing Committee will now award the invitations to the winners from the semifinals. Making up the United States women's 800-meter Olympic team, Sharon Hedrick, Sacagawea Hunter, and Candace Cable. The men who will be racing in the Olympics this summer are Randy Snow, USA, Rick Hansen, Canada, Jim Martinson, USA, Paul Van Winkle, Belgium, Mel Fitzgerald.
That was a fairly emotional experience for me. I'm not usually an emotional person when I win or when I lose.
Peter Trotter, Australia. We will now conclude these ceremonies, and we wish all the athletes going to Los Angeles the best of luck.
Same opportunities for wheelchair athletes are becoming available as they are for other athletes in terms of being able to pursue the sport to the same degree, getting financial support, running for prize money, getting commercial endorsement, being accepted, received in our society as legitimate athletes. We're just seeing that now within the last year or two, and the inclusion of the wheelchair event in Los Angeles, putting a wheelchair athlete on a box of Wheaties. Many of the wheelchair athletes are beginning to receive commercial endorsement because we get media attention, because the corporations believe that we have positive with their corporate identity and image. And that will spin over to the individual athlete, but also to our organizations, and it will help the organizations provide more and better opportunities for disabled people to pursue both sport at a lower level, participation, recreational sport, and also the highly competitive elite sport.
Keep it up, 44. Go, Stacy.
Back in January or February, I guess, when I found out that there was going to be an Olympic 1,500 meter in LA, I started just really every night, I'd lay in bed and dream about it and think, what would it be like if Randy and I could do that together? Certainly, he was strong enough as an athlete with the right circumstances, a little bit of luck, and a bunch of hard training. I thought, we can do this. I really kind of think we can.
We have 3 individuals from Canada, which is a great blessing because as a team, we will know each other. We'll be training with each other for the next 4 weeks. So we'll know what we can do to maximize our chances of at least one of us winning, if not all 3 of us coming 1, 2, 3. The key is who executes, who strategically and tactically comes across maximizing their strengths and minimizing their opponent's strengths, taking advantage of their weaknesses. I think that's going to be the difference between winning and losing there, because when you look at each individual athlete from 1st to 8th position, there's not a heck of a lot of difference. If you put them all in the same race, they'd all be real, real close. And I think that's what you're going to see in Los Angeles.
LA is the biggest thing that's ever happened for disabled people. The elite, the cream, the top able-bodied people in the world have acknowledged that disabled athletes are out there and that we're legitimate. So that's a big compliment. It's the first one. I don't think it's going to stop. I think this is where it's going to start snowballing. There aren't going to be enough Wheaties boxes to go around. And 92 million people are going to watch this. And they're going to go, wow, I didn't know that. It's going to be a big awareness thing. It's really important. I think that the effect of this event on the rest of the disabled population will be phenomenal too. You're going to see a lot more disabled people getting outside and going, hey, if they can do it, I can do it. They can get out there and wheel in front of 92,000 people packed into a stadium, then I can go down to the store and buy bread instead of sending my neighbor down. I think it's going to have a big effect, a positive effect.
I think it's kind of ironic that I'm in a wheelchair now and I'm going to be in the Olympics. That, you know, that's something that most able-bodied people dream of at one time or another when they're in school competing in sport. Wow, the Olympics, you know, I might be there. But I never ever thought of myself being in it. I was always really thrilled by watching it, but I just think it's really kind of funny that now that I'm in a wheelchair, that I'm in it.
The Olympics is just a frosting on her cake. She's worked so hard for so long to get where she is, and she's been so broke and kept on going. I don't know if it even matters if she wins at this point. It's just to get there and to be able to do this and to be recognized for the athlete that she really is.
I like myself a lot better, and I'm a lot happier, and I've been able to do a lot of things that I would have never dreamed of doing. You know, one being in the Olympics, but another is meeting Peter.
We're getting married in October, late October sometime. But it's not a proper date as of yet. We're going to wait until after the Olympic Games, and then we'll make a decision for the time, because there's too much going on right now to think about that.
So, where are we going? We're going to go across the road?
We have a long-term goal of starting a business, working within the school system, teaching the physical education departments, working with the disabled in a sports aspect, and how you can mainstream and integrate everyone together, and to eventually take that on to a certification program for teachers.
Right now, I want to reestablish myself on the road in road racing. I'd like to win some important races. A lot of people said I've never won the big one. You know, that I'm going to do. You know, my immediate reaction is the same it was in New York. It's unfortunate. It was something that, for me, is still hard to believe. I mean, I would like to be there on the track. It's going to be very strange sitting here watching the race, you know, but what do you say? Just be patient, listen to yourself, and try to keep your head together and deal with it in a rational way. Good luck. That's all I can say. You know, it's such an individual thing. Gee, hope you deal with it, you know, or whatever. It's tough. I'm not a great politician. Hopefully I will just be an influence, you know, to help people in the decision-making process so that the sport can progress and grow to where it should be. Hopefully we can get the people who are stagnated and people that came over on the Mayflower out of the sport and help it to become more progressive. It's good in a sense that I'm really looking forward to the future now, and it's made me hungrier now. I'm much hungrier than I was before to reestablish myself on the road, where all along that's where I felt our strengths were as athletes, is in road racing. I think that's where the future is.
You know, one of the nice things about having a dog is that there's always somebody happy to see you when you come home. If I come home from a big race that I've just won, Schuster's there and he's wagging his tail and he's jumping all up and down. He's just so happy to see me. And if I come home from a big race and I've lost, Schuster's there and he's wagging his tail and he's jumping all up and down and he's just so happy to see me. When I came home from New York, and I came in and he's jumping all up and down, wagging his tail, and I said, Schuster, I didn't make it to the Olympics. He just wagged his tail as if to say, what's the Olympics? And when we go out for a run, he doesn't care who gets down to the corner first or who gets home first or how fast we go or how slow we go. He just runs because it's fun, because he likes to run. And I think that perhaps
what we have to do first is heighten everyone's awareness. There is wheelchair marathoning, there is wheelchair track. Show them, get them to come out and see what it is, how competitive it is. Get to see those 1/10 of a second finishes in a marathon or 1/100th of a second finish in a 1,500-meter race. That's what people want to see, and that's what the sport is. And once they're made aware of what it is, then I'm sure the sport will be on its own. You'll see the sport start to develop specifically on its own to the point where we'll be having wheelchair road races only. And we're having them in Minnesota, in Japan, in Australia. I'm looking forward to the day where I look back and I see 500 to 1,000 wheelchairs lined up on the starting line of a marathon. I would like to see the day where anyone who wants to sit into a wheelchair and pursue the sport as a sport is welcome. I don't see any reason why an able-bodied person couldn't get in. So come on in, but good luck.
Of Canada, Soccer of Sweden, Ingrid Waddinson, Denmark, Sakajawiya Hunter, USA, Connie Hansen, Denmark, Anna Maria Overfors of Sweden. Ceremony for the wheelchair exhibition. Women's 800 meters will now commence.
Mesdames et messieurs, nous allons assister à la cérémonie de remise des médailles pour une course de démonstration fauteuil roulant 800 mètres femmes.
Winner of the gold medal, representing the United States, Sharon Pedrick. Silver medal, representing Sweden, Monica Sacker. Bronze medal, representing the United States, Candace Cable. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome playing the national anthem of the United States of America. 8 competitors. Lane 1, Peter Trotter, Australia. Lane 2, Mel Fitzgerald, Canada. Lane 3, Jim Markinson, USA. Lane 4, Jürgen Geiger, Federal Republic of Germany. Lane 5, Randy Snow, USA. Lane 6, Andre Bigger, Canada. Lane 7, Rick Hansen, Canada. And in lane 8, Paul Van Winkle, Belgium.
Did they just pick 3 guys and put them up here by 1-0? I don't believe it.
Medal, representing Belgium, Paul Van Winkle. Winner of the silver medal, representing the United States, Randy Snow. Medal, representing Canada, Andre Bigger. Ladies and gentlemen, please rise for the playing of the national anthem of Belgium.
Tomorrow a chance except